evening. It is Saturday night. It has just gone 8 o'clock, and it is time for some Doctor Who. And this week we are going to be doing Planet of the Daleks. And with me, of course, to do Planet of the Daleks is Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
There we go. Yeah, we're continuing the run of what I consider to be prime episodes of Pertwee. Last week we did Frontier in Space, and this week we are doing Planet of the Daleks. And basically, this is kind of the second part of the story. What we had last week was kind of the setup. It was kind of part one of a big two-parter, and given that we had followed on from Carnival of Monsters, I think that it was a huge step up in the quality of the show. I think that's a fair.
Slightly.
Yeah, I think it's a fair statement. I mean, like I said, when we were watching Carnival of Monsters, though, I kind of feel like they deliberately knew what they were doing. I think that they must have. You can't accidentally make that. So they must have known we need to save money here, and this is how we're gonna do it. Whereas I feel with Planet of the Daleks and Frontier in Space, they kind of went, actually let's see where this goes. Let's actually make a concerted effort here, and I think we get a couple of bits of reused set, not much though. In how it's handled. Obviously reused props because the Daleks make an appearance. Yeah, it's. Is this a story that you're familiar with, Chris?
Not overly. I know that obviously it's a follow-on.
Yes.
I know that it's pretty much a sequel to the first ever Dalek story from the first Doctor. And I know that Roy Skelton is inside a Dalek and outside a Dalek playing a character.
Yeah, I mean, this it's got some it's got some interesting production creativity. Lucosa's just joined us this evening as well. Good evening, Lucosa.
Hi, mate.
Yeah, look, this episode a couple of weeks ago I mentioned how Doctor Who isn't particularly good at doing biodiversity on planets. This one, it kind of has a really good crack at it, but it's still, for me, there's a couple of little things that I would redo. It's not minor, okay. It's not huge big things, but I think this one does have a really good crack at it, and I think it's something like this that makes me feel like older episodes. There's more of an effort here than what you get in later series. Like usually, if they do Alien Planet, it's usually in the same way that Hollywood would often do an Alien Planet and just use Vasquez rocks. With Doctor Who, it's always a quarry. Whereas this time they're trying to do an alien planet, and it's not a quarry. I mean, it's an alien planet, but they're actually giving it full guns. They are actually it's studio ridden, so it's a lot of faux foliage. But I think that goes away really quickly. I think that the perception of it being, oh, this is in the studio, that gets swept away with the fact that actually what's happening here is quite interesting and it's quite well done, because it doesn't feel like a studio. It's not like where we've seen the studio floor before, whereby usually somebody sprinkled sand and you can still see the concrete through this. Here, it actually looks like thick jungle. It actually does look like thick jungle. It's good. It's nice.
So they bought 2 bags of sand and some bark chippings.
they actually, I think they made a really good effort. Also, Lucosa puts also features Prentice Hancock, which is always a plus in Who. I think, yeah. I mean, this got a good cast. One of the people as well that makes a comeback. It's been in Doctor Who, quite a few episodes of Doctor Who at this point. So it's nice to have a good little a regular cast member come back then. Even though he's playing a completely different character. But we got a nice twist in this story, and here's my issue with. Actually, I'll leave this to later, right? This is. I'll write this down. It's just so I remind it. Remind me of it. But I'll bring this up later. I won't do it now. I think this story is good in terms of how it's structured. I know, like you said, it's kind of feels like a follow up or a rehash of the first Dalek story with William Hartnell. I don't feel that. I don't feel that with this, and I think that you're limited with the Daleks. You can't go too far with the Daleks. If you are, you need a justifiable reason for it. You need the Dalek stories to kind of be the same, in that their behavior must be the same. If you go too far away, if you get a caring sharing Dalek, it's not a Dalek anymore. So I only have one issue with the story, but it's an issue that doesn't last, thankfully. Yeah, I mean, it's why I don't like modern Cybermen, because they've tried to change the Cybermen from what they were. So once you've deviated from what they were into, these are now a new version of the Cybermen. Well, that's fine as long as you recognise that the older version are still as they were. You can't really decide that because you don't like a character. You can always make a character be representative of a different facet of society present today, as long as you don't forget about what they were before. And that's crucial in not just storytelling, but character building. It actually, you can actually add to the narrative, of having these characters change and form and morph and become something else, as long as you acknowledge that they've changed, morphed, and become something else.
I thought this story was kind of a look back at what's happened to the Foals and the kind of impact that the Doctor had on them in the first story. Have I got that wrong?
Not really, but it's more of a. I find this story to be more true to Daleks' cunning, than rather than how they were. Because originally they were kind of trapped within the city. They couldn't really get out of the city. They were stuck because they were had to be on metal floors and things like that, and they all had that in their nature. But I don't think that they've ever really done a Doctor Who. Because for me personally, I would love to see Skaro before the wars. I would love to see a Skaro before it all descended into crap. Because we have never seen that. We don't know what that was like. That's something that is worthwhile exploring, because we know where it goes. We know where it ends. It doesn't end well. But we also don't know what happens following the story, by the way. There's no follow-up to this. So even though this story, I think, kind of leaves you with a glimmer of hope, there's let me put it this way. There are certain stories in science fiction that end similarly to this, and some of them are things like Terminator or Terminator 2, whereby you go through this hell, and at the end of it you're left with, okay, there's a possibility of hope. There's a possibility of things getting better, and that's quite a nice note to end on. It's after what happens within the plot, you feel like people are definitely in danger, but from multiple sources. It's not just any one particular thing. And I think that's really good as well with this story, is the fact that there is more than one threat. And I don't want to talk too much about it right now, because I think that we can obviously talk about it more as we go through and afterwards as well. Anything you'd like to ask or comment on about this episode, Chris, before we get into start?
Well, it's the first episode post Roger Delgado, isn't it? Yeah. So I would imagine it was I don't know how close this was filmed to when he actually passed away.
I
But
don't
if it was
know.
anywhere near the time of his accident and that, I'd imagine it was quite poignant for most of the cast and crew.
If it happened during the filming of this episode, they don't know about it, or you certainly, they definitely don't display any sort of, you don't cut to one shot of Katie Manning with red eyes. It's not visible. Then it's in the performance or in the physical makeup. There's no, um, it's either a testament to the professionalism, or at this point in time they simply didn't know about it.
Right.
I mean, it's one or the other, but you don't see it. You don't see it displayed. I mean, it's. I would imagine, given how this rolls out and how they shoot, I would have assumed that that whilst they had just finished wrap on Frontier in Space, I was assuming that Delgado was actually taking a couple of weeks off, so they'd have probably had a week of rehearsal before starting the production on this. So it must have happened over the course of the production, I would have thought. But actually when it happened, I couldn't possibly say. But it doesn't show in the performance. I know that. I think before we get into this as well, I think Katie Manning does a great job in this. I think there's elements of her character that we see that whereby she's a little bit more of herself and less juvenile, I think. Because the writing for her character in this series is kind of bounced back and forth. It's kind of she's. I mean, maybe they wanted it to be a bit more relatable to a younger audience. So they kept having her bounce back into this sort of juvenile behavior, whereas I think in this one, she's a bit. She seems very capable in this one, I would have said. Overall, in general, there's a weird moment at the start of this, which we'll talk about, I think. Which has to do with the fact that I think they kind of put in this odd. It's kind of an odd thing, whereby the Doctor's trying to heal himself from what happened in the previous episode.
Oh, is this where he goes a bit frosty because his
Yeah.
temperature goes down? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, I don't really recall whether I've actually seen this or not. I don't think I have, but I think I've definitely seen bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you saying that just triggered that off. Yeah, I remember the Doctor having some frosty makeup.
I don't mind the Doctor having some weird abilities, because it's just a reminder that he's alien. But I don't really remember there being a really good explanation for it. I just remember that he does it. I can't think of a good explanation for it either. I can't think of it's not a trait that happens either. I don't think the fourth Doctor does it. The fifth. I think the sixth has a moment whereby he's trying to heal from something, so he just has this sort of moment of where he has to lie down and sort of zone himself out. But I don't really recall anything like that ever happening before or since. So
No, I mean the 13th Doctor just needs a Scooby snack and all is well.
Well, if we're gonna compare and contrast with the 13th Doctor here, I mean, remember I was talking to you before about why I don't like the Ghost Monument, because of what it's beautifully shot. The Ghost Monument, it really is, right? It's I can't knock the cinematography or the location choices for that show at all. But this does a better job of biodiversity than that episode, and this is nearly 50 years behind it. At the time when Ghost Monument was shot, probably about 47 years behind it. And I think this does a better job of displaying an alien planet, even though theirs looks prettier. This one does it better. Yeah, we there's no surprises here. I think it's Planet of the Daleks. There is a little thing that might come up a bit later, which I think we can kind of go around, which has to do with the capabilities of a Dalek. But that's something for a much later episode. We can certainly postulate as to why it is that they do the things that they do. But that's as we go through the episode anyway. So
The main thing I'm hoping
yes,
for, during the attack of the Cybermen, there was no attack.
yes.
I'm hoping that, going by the title of this one, there is at least a sodding planet.
there is a planet and there are Daleks.
Excellent.
I'm guessing that they kind of, this must have come out after Planet of the Apes. Because I'm guessing that this is sort of the titling for this would have been in that vein, you know, Planet of the
Planet of the Apes was 68, wasn't
yeah,
it? So.
yeah. So this has been way behind. So these have probably done Beneath the Planet of the Apes and things like that as well by then. Battle of the Planet of the Apes and things like that. Again, good titles, but I think what works with this one, it is Planet of the Daleks. They do their best to put as many Daleks on the screen as they can, given how limited, you know, the production wise, how limited they were for Daleks. I think they give a reasonable explanation as to why they're not all up and about, which is kind of. It's not that it's contrived. It's just that, like these days, they have the opportunity and they have the ability to put as many Daleks on screen as they want to just by hitting the clone button on the CGI keyboard. Whereas, with this one, I feel like they use what they have at hand. To kind of give you the best of what they can. I think that they really do try to put as many Daleks on screen to kind of make it feel as full as possible. But yeah, I mean, they don't really give you a good explanation as to why the Daleks are kind of in the state that they're in. So
isn't this one also before the Daleks, like the actual the actual travel suits are all battered up? Because if I remember, I know we see him in Genesis.
yes.
When we see him again in Destiny of the Daleks, they're absolutely had the hell knocked out of them. They look terrible. So I'm hoping they look a bit better in this one.
I mean, they've had a lick of paint. You know, that's a good thing. So yeah, there's the same trick they used in The Evil of the Daleks. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, again, when it comes to a Dalek story, I think you can't go too far off the beaten track. I think if you get away from how a Dalek thinks and operates, I think you have to. It's mainly how the people react is the more important thing. I think you can always have a Dalek do a very singular thing and behave in a very singular way. But I think where you get the interesting story is how differently people react to it. I think you take a Dalek and you put any Dalek. If you were to take any Dalek and put it into a situation where, and you could pick any situation, right? You could take a Dalek and go, right, then how would people react if you took a Dalek and put it in the middle of a football stadium, right, and it starts shooting people? Well, you know, that's gonna have a reaction. You're gonna get people panicking, running, and all this. Whereas at the same time, you know, if you took a Dalek then and put him in the middle of a military camp, well, you're gonna get people opening fire back. You know, and you get all these variations of, and you can do anything with those. You can do these sorts of stories. You can have what happens if you put a Dalek on a spaceship and it's hunting people down. What if you put a Dalek that's being hunted? How does that react? How does this? What happens if you've got a species that's hunting Daleks? All these different variations, that doesn't change the Dalek mind. It just changes how people interact with it, and that's where you get the storytelling. You know how a Dalek works inside a particular line of parameters, and it's as a writer you would have to look at those parameters and say, right, how it's not how do I change this to make it interesting. It's how do you change how the people react around this that makes it interesting. That you always that's just your strong back for the story is that here's a Dalek, and I think that's what you get with this is the fact that you get a really good Dalek-esque story. Again, that's what that's why they call it a Dalek story, because this is a group of people that are interacting with Daleks. You can almost call, you know exactly what a Dalek's gonna say. I don't have to tell you what a Dalek's gonna say when it meets his enemy. You know what a Dalek's gonna say. You know. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much before we get into this. I think we're pretty much ready to make a start. I think.
Yep, I'm ready, mate. I'm at all the zeros as normal.
So let me just set this up. But I think we're gonna have a good one tonight. I think we're gonna have a bit of a laugh. I think we're gonna have a good time, and I think we're gonna get some real good science fiction on the go from classic Doctor Who. So I'm pressing play in 3, 2, 1. Ting. Here we go. Presented by BBC and. There we go. I always forget that when I put this on, it's always at maximum volume. I am deaf. There we go. Planet of the Daleks by Terry Nation.
That was his first one for a while, wasn't it?
Let's move in a bit so I get comfy. No, there's something that you don't see very often. Is the flap on the call sign open. You don't normally see that on classic episodes. I'm really not fond of the IKEA furniture. Given how funky they had all the seating and everything in the last one.
Do get a good shot up John Pertwee's nose.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, you can see his brain from here. Like, it's a good thing it's the only thing that's in the cupboard.
Yeah, I do like the transporter pad behind them as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's been there since Hartnell. It's a nice shot of the TARDIS model. Again, the good thing with the TARDIS sets is the fact that they've rejigged it and reshuffled it, but it's always stayed the basic shape. You can kind of see the casters on the bottom of the set there. They haven't put anything to cover it up. That's how permanent the sets are in Classic Who. You can see the casters that they're standing on. Newfangled technology, eh? To anybody else. Here's the good thing with this prop, mind. Back then, people didn't know what a tape deck looked like because it was brand new. These days, people don't know what a tape deck looks like because it's so archaic.
Yeah.
It's only people of a very limited generation understand what it is she's holding.
Well, it looks like a tape, but it's actually a recording
Yes.
unit. It's an early dictaphone.
By the way, this is one of the reasons why I don't like the TARDIS console, the time capsule console from Twice Upon a Time, and that's because there's the colour of the bloody console. It's not pure white.
Yeah. My goodness, he's fallen into some biscuits.
It's. I mean, I think they sprayed him with some sort of wax.
See, with that makeup on, that really is foreshadowing Wurzel Gummidge, isn't it?
Yeah. But normally when they do frost on a person, you can kind of use various things, but it's normally something.
Icing, sugar, and glitter.
Well, these days I think it's normally potato flakes and salt. I think you can use wax. I mean, wax does work. You've kind of got to put in like into like an air gun and just fire it with an open. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I just think of Red Dwarf for that moment. I don't know why. I think maybe it's the sound, the squidge sound. Just don't use what they used in Wizard of Oz. Yeah, it's toxic. Sounds like lead or something, and asbestos.
Pure crack cocaine.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's just what they were feeding Julie Garland to keep her working. That's not
No,
far
it's
from the
not,
truth, is
no.
it, really?
Yeah, you can see lots of expanding foam in this as well, which is not bad. It actually is very effective.
Yeah, if you paint expanding foam and polystyrene grey, it does look like rock.
Yeah. Or if, as they use it in modern Doctor Who, they just use it to spray in to cover up the bottom of the interior of the TARDIS floor and just leave it unpainted, and it looks like expanding foam. I mean, it's a shame about the studio lighting going green there because there's no need for it.
That's the light coming through the leaves. Come on, have you ever been in a forest? That's exactly the sort of lighting I'd have if I didn't have a green screen up.
Yeah. I mean, it's creative, but there's no need for it. I think if they'd have gone with a more yellow light, a more soft amber, I think it would have worked just as well.
Oh, to be fair, the sky was kind of green.
Yeah, that's an instant transform change. There you break me, Jesus. The way that sun come up. They thrashing. Now, this is one of the problems I do have with this plot, mind. Jo is recording the log. She's doing exactly what the doctor has asked her to do. But actually, the point of her recording the log doesn't really get paid off. It's more the log itself. I wish one of the answers to the problems was actually recorded in the log.
pretty sure I just saw a stagehand reflected on the
Yeah,
rotor arm
yeah.
there.
It's one of the problems you've got when anytime they do something with a reflective surface. But I mean, you got to look at this production here. They've built another spaceship, which could have reused from the last episode.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not going to knock the reflective surface because no one has done that
No.
as bad as Star Trek Next Generation in the episode where Denise Crosby comes back. You can see a bloke with glasses and a blonde perm.
Yeah. No, I think they've given that we are confined to a stage here, which is always a problem whenever they do a planet surface. But for shooting purposes, you've got to accept what you're stuck with. Um, I think the sets are pretty good. I think the sets are at least comparable or better than what they did for the original series of Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean it looked very jungly.
Yeah. And there's the planton with the switch planton that is always used. You can see up there on the side of the cockpit. Now then, an infinite interior inside the TARDIS, and the oxygen supply is running out. Don't be so silly.
It's all right. He's got spares. It's another prop for Pertwee, isn't it? Really.
Yes. So, here's the whole problem with the whole oxygen bit running out, right? Is the mathematics on it. And it's the fact that you couldn't possibly be running out of oxygen. You couldn't. No, not in a space that big. No, it would take you probably about 4 or 5 days. Just to run out of the oxygen that's in the TARDIS console room. There he is. Well, in one episode, Gulliver. In another episode, he was a Time Lord. I like the little character moment there where he says, "Yo, oh, I'm qualified in medicine. I'll do what I can." The guy with the gun just like you just robbed him of his testicles right there, right in front of her.
Yeah.
You,
We're not a space hospital. I'll help you.
you see him just drop the gun like what was that point? I think it's a good reaction as well. He just comes in with this whole sort of like, there's a patrol coming in. What the hell is this? It's a good reaction because you don't expect to find if you don't expect to see somebody else there. No, I'm looking at this set and I'm wondering whether or not this set was actually built around like a caravan or something. because it does seem like the whole set does actually shake and wobble.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether or not they.
Yeah, now you've said that, that does look like a caravan internal door.
Yeah. So I'm just.
And that looks like where the kitchen and toilet unit would
Yeah.
be.
See, and they get to do this. So I'm wondering whether or not they have actually just stripped the caravan and redressed it.
I think they have. My mum and dad had a small caravan in the 80s that was a very similar layout to that. Obviously, it didn't look like a
Yeah.
spaceship, but in the position of the like the different squared off units and that.
Yeah. Well, again, like where that green thing is now being put down, you probably find the cooker or something like that, and it's been stripped out and they've redressed it. This would be the seating area where the chairs are there, with the you have a seating wrap around. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's perfectly good idea as well. Particularly if you want to move something on and off the set. And cheap as well. You can imagine you don't even need a good caravan. You just need a scrap one.
Yeah.
All you really need is the chassis. And it's interesting because you don't actually see the right side of the spaceship either. So I'm wondering whether or not that wall has actually just been cut open every time they needed to put a camera in. Because you wouldn't be able to shoot in there with those lenses, even a wide open lens of that's about a 24mm shot. Then you're probably 10 feet away. Very reminiscent of Forbidden Planet there. I'm sure the set is supposed to be moving, small, cramped spaceship, not very stable. Yes. Oh, I think they've done a cracking job with it. See, look, you can see the casters. Damn it! A bit of polystyrene would have worked. You can actually see the hinge there as well.
You got to pretend you don't see those things.
But just, I mean, no, it actually goes to show how well put together this is when you can kind of you can see those things. You can see how it works. You shouldn't be. Don't do that. You shouldn't be looking at the pin for the rotation of the door. No, I'm willing to bet that expanding foam caused extensive amounts of damage to that prop. I'm willing to bet that after this story, they probably had to sand the whole damn thing down. Because you won't get that off.
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing trousers right now which have expanding foam stuck to them and has been stuck to them ever since it happened, and that was a while back. I mean, where I've been working and wearing these trousers, they still have expanding foam on them. It doesn't come off.
Well, it's nice to know you came casual.
Yeah.
Didn't bother dressing up.
Actually, I was working on the Ambassadors of Death video again today, but I actually have to stop on that for a moment because I've actually run out of materials.
You've run out of materials.
Yeah, I thought I had. No, that's not true. I have materials. I don't know where they are. So I've actually ordered more.
I thought you was going to say you have all the materials, just not necessarily in the right order.
Well, they are in order. They just I don't know where they are. I've put them down somewhere safe. So good bit of continuity.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't bode well for young Joe,
No.
does it?
But again, it's good when they honourable refer to the biodiversity of this uh, planet with the plant life, and they are making an effort on trying to make it seem like a live planet.
Yeah.
Spyrodon, Spyrodon, does whatever a spider can.
Stop it.
Yeah, the heavy breathing Spyrodons. It's a good thing they're asthmatic, otherwise you'd never know they were there.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
Invisible, the bane of sci-fi writing, in my opinion. Yeah. Again, it's one of the things that they take a make out of in Red Dwarf, isn't it? Where they do the black and white invasion of the totally invisible aliens. There's one. Ah! Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of invisible stuff. I think the only time it's ever really worked for me is when they done the horror. What was it? The Invisible Man, Hollow Man. I think that's the only time it's really worked for me. I think. Also the comedy as well, the Chronicles of the Invisible Man with Chevy Chase. This is a nice reveal. I mean, it's a shame it's in the bloody. Um, it's in the title. I mean, I'm trying to think what else they could have called this story.
Planet of the squirty things.
Um, Perils of Spyrodon. See, this doesn't make sense either because the explanation of you know squirt this and you'll see what we're up against. He's already told them that he was there the first time around. He's already met Daleks before. He knows what a Dalek is. So they know what a Dalek is. He knows what a Dalek is when he's like, oh no, spray this and you'll see what we're up against. Planet of the Daleks and episode 1 cliffhanger, is there a Dalek on the planet? Yeah, there's a Dalek on the planet, yeah. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm about to skip. Hang a sec. BritBox ting. I'll press pause for a second. Let me know when you're ready to start episode 2.
I am indeed ready.
Yeah. And I'm going to be pressing start for the start of episode 2 now. Doctor Who. So, how are you enjoying the first episode?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm not a big fan of invisible things particularly myself, but that wasn't done too badly. I'm trying to work out whether so they're on Spyrodon,
Yes.
but that's not Skaro. But is it Skaro?
No. It's a completely different planet. It's kind of they've escaped to, or they've. The plot will unfold, and it does make sense. Again, he was there at the beginning. So, another nice little bit of continuity here. This does come back up again in Bad Wolf and Partner of the Ways. They have the ability to keep themselves invisible off the scanner screens for a defined amount of time.
Yeah.
It's one hell of a callback.
I would have at least pushed it over. Now, does that stuff next to Joe signify she's chucked
I
up?
don't know. It's entirely possible somebody just dropped some paint.
That's it. Put a coat over it. Guaranteed cure.
They like the use of amp meters on these sets.
Yeah, it looks very sci-fi for the side, doesn't it? I mean, she's saying she can't describe that. I don't see how it's so hard to describe. Yeah. PVA, tan-coloured paint, and wood chips.
Yeah.
Bless her.
It looks like you had a really bad cold and didn't have a tissue. We're jumping, cutting music there.
Yeah.
I do think that they've written these characters particularly well, in terms they haven't done anything brilliant with them, but they've kept the characters as single-minded as they've always been. So the behavior is not. I don't want to say predictable, but it's very much in keeping with how you think they would respond. You know, the fact he's a doctor is a little bit more caring, he's a little bit more forgiving. The other one seems a bit more security wise, so he's a bit more anxious to fight.
Well, that got round him quick, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a good little sort of. Yeah, he was much nicer as Paul Morrow. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I mean the way they write these characters though, I mean they're very simple in how they're done, but at least they're consistent. It offers it offers character traits that don't deviate. And or let's put it this way, it offers character traits that have room to grow.
She's left her tape behind, hasn't she?
Yep. I mean, it must have been a bit weird him acting this on the set.
Oh, I think he pulled it off quite well, though, to be honest.
Yeah. But again, it's dealing with an invisible thing, isn't it? It's not. So a bit of weird framing for two Daleks there. You could only see the one.
Yeah. It looked like he had two plungers for a second.
Yeah.
Got him right in the knees.
Again, that's another thing, mind, because they did that with Ian. In the first Dalek story, they kneecapped him. Because if you remember that particular Dalek story, Ian was disabled and he couldn't walk, so Susan had to go back to the TARDIS to get the medication.
Yeah. It is nice when they take the time with callbacks that actually work.
Yes. Big time. Again, it just keeps things consistent. It just keeps things.
Those were very smooth sliding doors as well.
I would love to have seen a little scene of elevator small talk between the Doctor and a Dalek. just chit chat like, nice day.
Did you pick up your pilchards while you was at market?
It's kind of like, you know, in Return of the Jedi, where Luke and Vader get in the elevator to go see the Palpatine. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
why didn't we see what was happening inside that elevator? You can imagine that conversation.
Yeah, Darth Vader apologising for missing his baseball tryout. And
At least have a scene with the Dalek saying it wasn't me. So again, we've got another facet now of character. So the other one's anxious to fight. He's scared. The other one's a pacifist. I mean, that's the one thing I would definitely say about Pertwee's Doctor, is that he is the Doctor with a lot of backbone. I don't think he doesn't display fear very well. He displays moments of fear. But he's very much a straight man, isn't he?
yeah.
See, I just wish that there was something logged on there that was going to sort of clue the Doctor in as to how to deal with this. This is quite effective, mind the CSO for that.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all.
It's better than dangling stuff on strings.
Going to help her by mixing paint.
Yeah.
Them fungoids on her arm actually look quite effective now. They've kind of finished the effect,
Yeah.
don't they? They look like them. I can't remember what they're called now, but those kind of sideways mushrooms that grow on trees.
Yeah.
That door would have opened instantly in the current.
The wall would have come down.
They would have teleported back to the TARDIS.
No, they would have teleported the TARDIS remotely there.
They would have dematerialised 4 hours before they went to bed. Luxury. That looked very much like 7 Daleks. That's not bad.
I think it's 8 altogether, I think. But they obviously 6 of them are non-functioning. But it doesn't matter. I do find they struggle making Dalek sets, mind, because I think they do struggle with, even today, just the notion of how you design a set that's supposed to fit around this thing. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't think they've ever particularly achieved it really well.
I don't know. I think they did a pretty good job in the original Dalek story.
Yeah, but I still think that it's not really geared for something that glides around, and is that particular shape. So they do things with doorways and whatnot. But I think you need a Dalek operator, somebody who's actually been working inside them to really sort of give ideas as to how this thing would operate. So it's quite good that he's actually using the prop to perfectly prop it, but what the hell was the point in giving the log to Joe if he's not going to use it?
So it could be found on the floor later on, so he could use it
Yeah,
there and
but
then.
there's
I mean,
yeah, yeah, but
it's
there's
a mean to an end,
yeah,
isn't
but
it?
there's no there should have been something to do with what Joe had noticed or logged that should have given him a clue.
Well, give it time. It ain't finished yet.
No, it is.
Oh, so that's that spoiler ruined. I was looking forward to the payoff of the log.
It's just one of those little of oversights. It's you know it's as they say it's a Chekhov's gun type of thing whereby they introduced the thing, but it's how they introduced it and how it's supposed to pay off is the problem. What is he doing to that bush?
And a bit of a dance.
I don't know. It's a bit dodgy.
We've seen her before recently.
No.
Well, she's a similar looking actress to one we've seen in the last few weeks, but I can't think who it was. 10,000 Daleks?
Yep.
Well, so far, apart from a couple of small oversights that are not anything really major, I think it's good. You were definitely right about the studio alien planet.
Yeah.
He's really, really good looking.
I mean it's one of those things whereby oh I'm sorry I got BritBox ting. Here we go. Starting episode 3 now.
Yeah, me and Luke Oza have got this one in black and white.
It's okay. I got it in full colour.
Yes, absolutely fine. I don't mind black and white.
Yeah, no. No, I think they've done a really good job of the like I said, they make it. You can see they making an effort of with the biodiversity. I think where you would have done something a little bit, or what I would have done a little bit different, is where like they had the tentacle. That scene. I would have made an effort of actually having that be the prey and going if that's the prey, where's the predator? That's you start introducing that sort of thing. That's called a crash. I find it weird that the Daleks have managed to capture the Spyrodons and keep them captive. Unless, of course, they can actually see them, but that's not never explained.
Well, it looks like they've given them fur coats so they can see them.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping them from taking them off and making a run for it. But again, I'm assuming that the Daleks can see them. So you're naked. God, I hope it was your hand I was holding.
He's good. Say, they've given him a stick to act with. He's pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think this is a bit more of a testament to Katie Manning's acting ability there, where she's actually turning and talking to absolutely nobody and making it look like she's having a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd stick your hand in something like that anyway. I believe what that substance actually is KY jelly mixed down with water. I'm trying to think if the Thal costumes are actually reuses. I'm pretty sure they must have been reused from something or redressed, but I can't think where.
I mean, they're kind of science fiction costumes, aren't they?
Sort of, but they've got a distinctive sort of roll padding on them. So maybe they've been modified and added that's been added to it, that quilting. I don't know though, because it looks like it's built in. So maybe it's just like a quilted suit, but I don't know. I'm like googling now. Lucusa says they remind me of the Eagle flight suits from Space 1999. Okay, so I typed in Thal costume. I clicked images, and the first image that comes up is baby socks inflatable jetpack, and the next one is adult knob jockey.
What?
Yes. Now, if I was doing this set, I probably would actually use a little bit of dry ice, just to add a little bit of, because it doesn't. I think the set works well enough. I just think it doesn't look cold. You know, a little bit of dry ice there to sort of just add a little bit of vapor into the atmosphere there. It's not horrendous. Uh,
I do
copy.
like the way, for the majority of it, they have kept the Daleks' phrases and things they say all the way through from them then till now.
Yes.
Especially the I obey bit and
Yeah,
stuff
but
like that. I mean, obviously, exterminate is
that's what I'm referring to. Like with the characterization of a Dalek, you can always predict a Dalek is very single-minded, so you can always predict the behavior. Dalek vision. Um.
appears to be a flying helicopter outside my house. So if you hear rotor blades, it's not me.
So I can't really find anything for it other than it was sold at auction.
Well, if it was sold at auction, it should list all the stuff it's been in.
Yeah. I can't really find any more than that. Shame. I'm not saying that there's not. Yeah, there's a lot of Dalek conversations in this as well, which is interesting because you don't normally get Daleks conversing.
Yeah. Oh, executing the brave Sir Robin manoeuvre
Yep.
there. I love it when the Daleks get on one like that. It's really effective.
Yeah. There's a touch of panic to him. So Katie Manning and Bernard Horsfall believe that the jungle fight in was a deliberate nod to the contemporary Vietnam War at the time. Terence Dix and Barry Letts didn't believe that Terry Nation would have done this deliberately, but it might have been subconsciously influenced by the war.
It's possible. A lot of contemporary programs react to the world around them.
Yeah. So it turns out that there were only 3 Dalek props left in existence when they started making this story, and they had to build an extra 7 for the shooting of this. That's why some of them are a bit better than others.
Sure, some of the effects look a lot better in black and white actually as well.
And the ice flow looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean it just compared to the other episodes, this black and white, but the image looks sharper. But that's the nature of black and white anyway, isn't it?
Do the 7 Dalek props needed to be built include Dalek Supreme? I don't know. I'm just looking it up now as to everything that they had to. Because I think Dalek Supreme was a movie Dalek, wasn't it? Wow. Okay. So, um, modified from Invasion Earth, I think, possibly. So what I'm seeing here is that they had um, 3 Dalek props that were still there from the 60s. The 7 that they built were completely unusable in terms of you couldn't have anybody drive them. And they were used to just be there as extras. And it wasn't until Resurrection of the Daleks, uh, Part 1, where the 4 Daleks used. No, it wasn't until Doctor Who Revelation of the Daleks Part 1 that new fully working props were made. That's interesting. I mean, I do find it funny that a Dalek just fleeced somebody.
Yeah, never underestimate the Daleks, Carwin.
I mean, you can just imagine seeing that guy shirtless and just seeing all these suction cup marks all over him. So yeah, looking at the information they've got here, is that they had um, 3 props that were working, and then they built 7 that didn't work, but were just static props. And the next time they actually built more working Daleks was Revelation.
There's a good couple of Dalek stories before that.
Yeah,
So, and they didn't look that in Genesis, so they must have given them another lick of paint, as you say.
yeah, absolutely. But just goes to show what how effective things can be if if you know how to use them.
Yeah.
I mean, at least it shows how Daleks can pick things up.
But not notice a small woman running around their command centre.
Yeah, well, they've only got one eye.
I mean, there are some callbacks to the original one that I can see why people would say it's a remake, but it's clearly not a remake.
Yeah, it's going in similar lines.
Yeah, it's got very similar beats, but it's not a remake.
No.
It's definitely more of a continuation.
I mean, the fact that the Thals are the aggressors in the story, whereas in the original one they were very much not.
No,
took
they
a lot
were
of
very
convincing.
pacifistic, weren't they?
Yeah.
All
They
big greebles. I bet you like that.
um the see the big horn thing on the top kind of reminds me of
Yeah.
that robot that they built, that big silver one. I can't remember the name of it. This is quite a effective plot. And it actually uses a bit of intelligence to sort of say, well, this is how we get out of this. Lots and lots of Daleks. And that's the end of that. Blasting through these episodes.
That's what happens when they're good episodes, though.
Yeah. So yeah, see what else we got. Yeah. This episode takes place in the 26th century. So there we are. Oh, I'm about to start the next one in a sec. So the original name for the planet was called Destinus before it became Spyridon. Presented by BBC and diddly 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 diddly. There we go. Into episode 4. So the original episode for this working title for this was Destination Daleks, which is a terrible, terrible title.
Yeah, it sounds like a holiday program.
Yeah.
Well, we're back in colour again now.
Oh. I think they changed it because Destina sounded too much like Desperus from The Chase. Maybe. I don't know. They've never been too worried about things sounding similar, really, in terms of previous plans, because they tend to sort of anything outside of 10 years is pretty much considered to be, changeable. I mean, they normally any if it's been like a year since somebody was in the show last, they're okay with recasting them back again, like they done with Bernard Horsfall. So here's the thing, and this is my little argument that I'm going to make about the Daleks right now. Daleks have changed over a period of time, and they've always adapted to the needs for specific things. It's no surprise to me that these Daleks can't fly, because the original Daleks had to use a metal floor. When that was ineffective, they started using power transmission. When that failed to work, they started using self-powering. Then when that fails to work, they started to use hover modes, and then when that fails to work, like this, they've upgraded themselves, and they keep doing it. And I think it's perfectly good that by the time you get to the Time War Daleks, that they've armored themselves up heavier, and they are able to do more capable things. So when people make comments like, these Daleks can't fly, no, they can't. But it's because they haven't needed to. They haven't encountered this problem yet, so that's another thing about the Daleks, is that they are capable of overwhelming.
The Dalek origin story, Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have metal floors and that one, did they? That was just
Right. So there is a bit of a difference there, though, in the fact that what happens with the Daleks in the original Dalek story, if you remember, they would actually been condemned in Genesis of the Daleks. What they did in the Dalek story in the original Hartnell one was set hundreds of years later. So
Yeah.
they were doing what they could to survive in that one. So they might not have actually needed the metal floors in the original, but they did in by the time it got to that because they needed to do what they could to survive inside the city. Because the city had been blown up by the Doctor, if you remember. If you try to put things, if you try to straighten out the timeline in your head, the original Daleks in Genesis of the Daleks had been blown up. The city had been blown apart. So the only way for the Daleks to power themselves was to put down metal floors so they could use the static through the metal floor. It does actually make sense when if you
Yeah, yeah. She wants to wake up pretty sharpish.
yes, one hell of an alarm clock.
Oh,
That's quite a nice little stunt there. Quite an easy shot, mind, but very effective.
yeah.
The fact that he misses the first one and just grabs onto the one underneath.
Hurry up, Doctor, or you're going to be Dalek surfing.
I mean, the thing is, this moment here, it does require a bit of sort of Wile E. Coyote thinking. Like, yeah, don't put it on his neck. It's okay, we're pulling him up. Well, he's dead now.
Well, it looked very much for the way it was displayed that they're actually lifting him up by his todger.
Like, this is what I mean. This is a Wile E. Coyote method of dealing with a Dalek.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, I know, but
I mean, that's to be fair, that's what I would have done. You know, if it was Wile E. Coyote, it wouldn't have been a rock; it'd have been an anvil. Come on, be honest.
I know. That's exactly what I'm looking at. It's a Bugs Bunny moment where they just walk over, just like da 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 da. Oh yeah.
Yeah, what would have made that perfect is if they'd have kept the camera on the Dalek and a little cloud went poof at the end.
It's just where all the other Daleks are gathered around the shaft at the bottom. It was like he's coming back down. Why is he descending? It must have been like, do you know, like the iron scene from Home Alone?
Yeah.
I'm standing right in front of you, you daft sod. Of course I wasn't.
we're throwing another plot in here, are we?
I don't think it's another plot. I just think it's a continuation of character development, really. I think it does demonstrate sort of the desperation of the Thals, really, and how limited they are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of blame to put on somebody's shoulders there.
That is a hell of a lot of blame to put on someone. I don't want to say it's your fault, but it's completely your fault.
Yeah, for a Dalek set, this doesn't really look like a Dalek set. It looks more like a police station.
Well, I suppose it is their command center, but it's not as effective looking as the command center from the original. I know this is like years later and that.
Had you listened to the tape, some lovely dialogue here.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else I'm enjoying here. All the ambient jungle sounds.
Yeah. Sound design, isn't it? It's quite nice, yeah. Again, it's a concerted effort to make the planet more biodiverse.
Yeah. why not go to the TARDIS?
Yeah,
There's lots of room, and you
and
can
it's
fly
warm.
into the city
Yeah.
and yeah, and warm and deliver your stuff.
I mean, it's not the greatest hiding place.
I think that boy's got other clasping on his mind, actually.
Again, this is where I would have probably used something like dry ice or something just to show that or even some mist, just to add atmosphere to it. Change the light into a bit more of a blue tone, like it is here. It's a bit more green here though. But I think if you had a little bit of fog on this set, one, it would hide the back wall, and two,
Yeah,
it would add a little bit more atmosphere.
yeah. A block of dry ice in each corner might have done a good trick on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad nighttime lighting, all things considered. Like it's they are kind of being lit from all directions, unfortunately. Like if you look at Weber there, he's been lit both from the left side, the right side, and the back. So it's not really what you would call natural lighting.
It depends if that planet's got two moons or not.
Well, this is true.
That's the old suspend disbelief thing
Yeah.
again, though, isn't it? I suppose that's me adding a reason
Yeah.
to it, but at least there are a decent dose there to show that it's darker.
Oh no, absolutely no. The nighttime lighting is actually quite nice. It's given the limitations of the camera equipment at the time, I think it's very well. A nice little moment, I suppose. Just goes to show, sort of like again, it just reinforces Weber's character,
Yeah,
his aggressive nature. Which I find odd for a Thal, but we'll assume that he's gone through some crap in the centuries that followed the original Dalek story. strange that they're starting to use the Spiridon clock instead of their own. I mean, it makes sense that they've adapted to the Spiridon working day now.
Yeah, it does seem weird having Daleks not counting stuff in rails.
Yeah. I mean, they did say it was a suicide mission.
Yep.
Nah, what's the point of you being careful? What sort of advice is that? Be careful. Like, you're on a planet surrounded by danger. I think it's probably just like object one, like.
A planet surrounded by danger, chasing a single-minded bloke with 2 bombs. A bloke that's already tried to shoot you twice.
Yeah, and is trying to infiltrate Daleks. Be careful, okay?
He's been outdone by a collection of pencil cases.
Yep. And that's the end of that. Again, that one went by quick. That one was quite talk heavy, mind. I will say that there was some nice dialogue in there, but it was very talky, that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of like plot building and a bit more characterization. Now, well, no, it was good. I mean, it's shot by. I can't believe we're on to part 5 already.
Yeah. But it's yeah. I mean, you find it with 6-parters that there's always the one episode, you know, like we had with the last one where they went to the moon for a bit.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, at least it's staying within the context of, it's not adding new elements to the show. Oh, here we go. There we are. Yeah, it stays within the context of the show. I mean, it was less action heavy, which can be a problem, particularly if you are looking at the pacing of it, like what we had with Frontier in Space, where it was a kind of a rush to the end. I mean, it's always going to be a difficult one to kind of pace, because you don't know where you're going to get until you actually try to film it. They're also unarmed and we have guns. Ones with glowing eyes.
Actual studio as well. But they haven't really gone. They just turned the lights out.
She could have just tried to throw in a rock, mind. Again, should have tried a rock. Oh, my testicles. I'm an alien. I don't keep my testicles where you keep your testicles. my god, he looks camp like that. Jesus Christ, what a line. Oh my god.
That's ruined you, isn't it?
The idea of seeing John Pertwee beating off Haley.
And there goes the family-friendly rating. Sorry, viewers. Carwin appears to have lost the plot. I'll just carry this for a minute.
Oh my god. It just caught me by surprise as all. Oh. Oh. That was worth it. Oh. What's happening? It's a whole forest full of creatures being beaten off by the Doctor.
Yeah, they're only going to come in ones or twos. It's all down to timing.
Are we back to normal now? Dark fever. See, they've got a bit of smoke in there now. Look how effective that is.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's Roy Skelton underneath that outfit. As we all know, though, Roy Skelton's only got one hand, hasn't he?
Yeah. So looking at where they are on the set there, I'm guessing that part of the set used to be where the spaceship was, and they've wheeled that off now to redress. Because it's quite a small stage that they're filming in.
Yeah.
So that would be my guess, is that where they are next to the back wall there is where the spaceship used to be.
They've done a good job of keeping the walls out of view, haven't they, in this?
Mm. I mean, I can't really take the furry purple creatures costumes seriously.
Well, they're just like they said. It's just fur coats, isn't it? It's not a creature. It's just a coat.
Yeah, but it doesn't mesh with. There's no other purple creatures on the planet with fur that we've seen. I'm not saying that there's none there. It's just there doesn't appear to be any in the vicinity. It's this well, surgical like that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not doing the cameras any favors.
No. They could have done something better than that prop. In fairness to them. See, look how effective that is now with all that smoke there.
Yeah.
John Pertwee talking to Bernard Horsfall. It's kind of like him talking to his stunt double, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like he's missed all the beating.
By the way, Bernard Horsfall as well passed away in 2013. Um, the last thing he did, the last thing that he was actually used in, was actually in 2016 in Doom Watch.
All right.
He was in Casualty for a bit. He was also in Braveheart. He'd done the usual rounds though: Poirot, The Bill, Casualty.
Puts food on the table, doesn't it? There's no shame in that.
No, absolutely not. No. Minder.
He must have done the professionals as well. If he done Minder, he must have done the professionals or the Sweeney.
Yeah, he did the Persuaders. Yeah. He was Christiansen in the episode the morning after.
Most actors from the 70s appeared in all of those shows you mentioned.
Yeah. Ivanhoe. I mean, it was a training ground, really, to be honest, though. Those sorts of shows, the training grounds for our actors, really. Anyone who's called themselves an actor have been in Casualty. I've been in Casualty.
Yeah, the program or just general?
No, in the show.
Have you?
Yeah.
What was you doing in Casualty?
I was background extra in a scene where we were just sitting there. It's supposed to be in the ER while they were doing a scene in front. So I was just sitting there and just holding my arm and just filling space, really. I'd done Casualty, I'd done Public Home, I'd done what else? Holby City. Yeah. It's not bad for a couple of for a day's work, you know.
I mean, a lot of people outside Wales probably wouldn't have seen Public On, would they?
No.
So,
No.
but I mean, is that still broadcast in Welsh
Yeah.
language?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
It's broadcast in Welsh and it has English subtitles on a Sunday, I think, when they do the omnibus. Dalek wrestling.
panicking Dalek by the sound of
Yeah.
it.
I don't know what he thinks he's going to do to that Dalek. Interesting cut though. They've gone from studio to quarry, and it's been pretty seamless actually. The lighting,
Yeah,
the dramatic light didn't change, but the cut itself was actually pretty smooth.
Oh, there's a bloke in here.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of hypothermia if it's super cold liquid water.
Yeah, wouldn't be doing their extremities on their feet any good.
By the way, just so you know, Bernard Horsfall as well was also in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Mm.
One of my favourite Bond films, that. Yeah, I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a very underrated Bond film.
That's the Lazenby one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really gritty Bond film. That is.
Yeah. And you got Dame Diana Rigg in there as well. Another Doctor Who alumni. Ah, so
Well, okay. We did have someone dress up as a Dalek. Was it Ian in the original?
yes, and the Doctor. The Doctor disguised himself as a Dalek in the Space Museum. Not to give too much away, but so Lucosa was asking about the Dalek Supreme. The Dalek Supreme was borrowed from Terry Nation, and he acquired it from the theatre prop sale, whose Daleks for the stage production had been constructed by Shawcraft. So that's where the Dalek Supreme comes from. They'd also been hired out for the Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD movie to make up the numbers. The Daleks are in a situation now where they have a pandemic. Now, I'm not sure there was a need for the budget for that. We'd already established that they were invisible. I don't think we needed to see them. The one and only time Roy Skelton is seen in Doctor Who. Yeah, but there's no need to do it. That was a bit of a waste of money, if you ask me. And that's the end of that chapter.
Dear.
Again, flying through it.
Rumbled. Yeah.
A bit more proactive in this episode, mind. Like I said, there was a bit of a stall in the last one. It was a bit more exposition heavy. This one's a bit more putting everything into practice and starting to go a bit more their way. So 3, 2, 1, BritBox. It's a ting. And diddly 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 diddly. go.
I can't believe we're on the last part already.
Yeah, flying through it. Absolutely flying through it. So, obviously, again, let's just look at the cast here. Bernard Horsfall, Jane Howe played Rebecca. Michael Wisher obviously done one of the Dalek voices. Um, so, Jane Howe, still acting. Um, yeah, so she's still acting, and she's actually in Cruella this year.
All right.
She's done the rounds as well, Holby City as well, Casualty. She was also in the TV series Bones.
EastEnders as well as Den's bit on the side.
Yeah.
To coin a phrase from the 80s.
Eight millimeter 2. I didn't know they made a second one. Oh dear me, my mentality is childlike.
What you done now?
Hey, you had to go down to the Arsenal.
Right. They didn't have to pop up to it.
Yeah, well, he spent most of his time beating people off, so. I'm trying to grow up slowly. I am.
Nah, it's overrated. Don't do it.
If I remember rightly, the Dalek spaceship in this kind of looks like a two-tier cake stack.
Yeah.
It's not the best Dalek spaceship.
Just seeing what Luke has put. Yeah, that is a shock, mate.
It's pretty bad that the only person here who has stayed family friendly is me.
If you'd ever watched one of his, you'd know why. Oh, that model don't look too bad.
There's nothing to it. It looks like a couple of cake tins turned upside down.
Yeah, it does, but I meant the actual execution of it. It doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, but they could have done. I mean, it's not straight. It's not even stacked straight. It's actually on the piss. They could have done something better than that. They could have. They could have made an effort.
It's obviously been in battle. That's why it's a bit skew with.
That's quite a weird effect, actually. With the CSO, that the door actually sort of slightly disappeared.
I've got to say the scoring for this ain't too bad either.
No, the scoring's quite good. I would like to. Again, this is one of those times where I would like to hear an orchestral version, because it has quite got a bit of a melodic vibe to it. It's not just a weird, strange sound effect. Well, the Doctor's got a TARDIS, love. Let's not let's not just assume that because they didn't have a spaceship they were stuck.
No, no. She seems to have forgotten that it's bigger on the inside.
I mean, right in the thick of it, and he's still on the pull.
Well, you never know when you're going to get your last shot of romance, do you?
Yeah,
if you're
no,
on a
no, no.
suicide mission. I think a lot of chaps at this period would have been quite happy to have got romantic with Katie Manning.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure for everyone, because she's a bit of a hobbit, she would have needed a box to stand on just to give you a hug.
See, it's good because it obviously, like, this is a different type of Dalek, but it stays within the boundaries of a Dalek.
I could probably do without the head bopping up and down a bit, but
Yeah.
you know, not much they can do about that. And they probably should have dubbed the sound of it moving out, but yeah, it still looks good. I mean, it's a movie prop, isn't it?
Well, no, it was a stage prop.
Oh yeah, staged for the movie.
Yeah. But I think it looks a bit. I mean, the little rivets they score all over it, that they just physically are there, I think add to the actual look of it. I don't think it takes away from it.
Yeah. I also quite like the glittery ice look on the refrigeration unit on the
Yeah.
cooling fins. I think that looked quite good. And that looks like a set from 60s Star Trek.
Yeah. Please don't show me your ass. Jesus, let's hope it's not your ass. You don't need that.
No, no. Wondering how deep it's
No.
gone and how warm it's
Yeah.
getting.
You don't need that. I said I'm a doctor, but no, I'm not looking at that. Jesus Christ. Just kicked the shit out of somebody in a Dalek. I'm just saying they should have slightly reiterated there that these Daleks were just waking up, so they're still disorientated.
Yeah. Although, you know, it is nice that programs still exist that force you to work it out
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, absolutely. And the bomb planted in the proper place would... West Coast would fall into the sea. Millions of people would be killed. Hello, new West Coast. My West Coast. You diseased maniac.
Stop it.
Given the fact that they couldn't damage those Daleks, the way they're executing these bomb effects isn't too bad. They could have done a bit better with the paint job on the wall mine.
Yeah.
It's quite tricky. Detonating a stage pyro so that you don't actually cause damage is because you normally get burns. You'd normally put a ceramic plate on the floor. Obviously, if you wanted to fire into a line, you put it into a steel cone and actually target it.
Yep. Yeah, considering how many actual practical working Daleks they've done really well with this
Yeah.
episode.
Now, yeah, I think these are toy Daleks now, I think they actually just bought, like, packs of toys of Daleks just so they could,
Still didn't look bad.
They don't look right. They've got a different, shaped top to them.
Yeah, they have, but for what it is, they haven't done bad. I mean, when you consider Rubber Frogs and the tank from Robot, I mean...
Yeah.
Right, it looked a bit
And,
pony on mass then.
The thing is, right? Here's my problem. I think this works reasonably well for this shot. Now they've done the updated version whereby they've done a CG cave full of Daleks, and to me, it doesn't improve it. I think this is pretty decent for what it is. And I
Yeah,
think
I
that
mean, most of the Daleks are supposed to be immobile anyway.
yeah, and the thing is, I think when people do these sort of remastering special editions, you've got to replace something with something better. You can't replace it with something worse. I do wonder how he sees for them. I'll give him that. I actually don't know. Everything has hit the fan. Alert, alert. Again, he has a spaceship. Lovely. Nice little bit of character progress and payoff.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something that's come from Pertwee himself, actually, as well. I can believe that actually came from him.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know if it is a in reference to Vietnam or anything like that, but
No, but I mean, like he actually
it
served.
stands to reason that war's rubbish.
I mean, he actually served, and I mean, I believe he was one of the survivors of the, I can't remember the name of the ship, but I think there was only like two people that survived, and he was one of them. Um, no. Yeah, it was a punt.
You can't say. Oh, right. Okay.
Punt.
Um. Yep. And he's back to beating off. Look, here he goes. Look, he's beating it now.
Oh dear.
Onto the ship, and off they go. We go back to Skaro, and the rest of the foals go, "It's a Dalek!"
Yeah, shoot it down. Throwing in a last minute peril.
Yeah, spurting plants. I mean, it's not like it doesn't fit in with everything you've said this evening.
And that's the end of that chapter. So, yeah, regrets. Yeah, I regret living on the home world of a race that would kill me on sight. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Planet of the Daleks done. Oh, let's get into a comfortable position here. Um, yeah, no, a good story. I think a good wrap up. I think it follows on from Frontier in Space pretty well, even though the end of Frontier in Space is a bit rushed. Um, but yeah, no, Chris, what are your thoughts?
I thought that was superb, actually. I thought that was really well done. Everything you said about the sets was true. I really like the ambient sound. The model effects, they weren't that bad. They were
For the time.
doable. I mean, yeah, even though, like you said, the Dalek spaceship was very sort of dull and boring, I suppose you could call it, and did look a bit like cake. The actual execution of the effects with the retro thrusters underneath it was done really well.
Yeah.
I thought the story was good. The characterization was of a type we just don't get today. Yeah, thoroughly
It's
superb story.
I mean, it's good the fact that they outset the story from the beginning with these three types of people, and then they introduced the other characters into it. I'm not sure they had to do that and why they couldn't have done it from the start. Maybe they probably felt that there might have been too many people on screen at once. Um, but the fact that they had these three people that were of very strong different characteristics, I felt was a really good idea because it meant for natural debate that these people automatically presented different personalities and different points of view. Um, and the good thing was that the Doctor wasn't necessarily telling people that they were wrong. You know, he was kind of putting his opinion forward as to why you shouldn't do something. But he didn't say like, oh, your goal is flawed. It was a case of, I don't think that's a good idea now. Because even with Weber, Weber was like, that's a foolish thing to do when he went to attack the Daleks. It was only a foolish thing to do because he didn't have all the information. When the Doctor had the information, the Doctor attacked the Daleks. So it was a case of the right time, really, more than anything else. But it was also the same, the character growth with all of them, in particular the guy who was feeling, what was his name? Not, oh God, I've already forgotten his name. The one who was a little bit afraid. The one that the Doctor had to put his arm on his shoulder.
Was that Codal?
Something like that, yeah. But I mean, he was forwarded more throughout the story than any other character, really. I mean, the Doctor character, not the Doctor. I mean, the other Doctor. Bernard Horsfall's character. I mean,
Taran.
yeah, his leadership sort of called into question, and was staying strong, and needed reassurance as to whether or not he was capable, and then that was a key part of this. So yeah, Lacosa's put down. I rate this 2 for Dalek stories, for Pertwee stories. It might just scrape into the top 5. Still great Pertwee era though. Yeah, I mean, do you class this as a Dalek story? Even though it's Dalek Planet of the Daleks, isn't this more a Thal story?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Before we move
Yeah.
on, the bit you said about why you didn't know why they didn't do all the characters in the beginning, too many people on
Yes.
screen. I thought it was good the way they did it because you had the initial 3 with their 3 like contrasting personalities,
Yes.
and they got to build on those characters before chucking a load in.
Yeah.
I think trying to juggle everyone's personalities about right at the beginning, I think it might have got a bit cluttered in the dialogue, and you
Potentially,
wouldn't have come across as strong with those characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. I don't know because they could have done it a different way where they could have sent out. They might have had all the characters already there and just said, "Look, the others have gone out on a scouting trip," and you could have easily brought them in the same way without having to do a spaceship crash. You know, that's something that they could have done is to say, "Look, no, we've sent them off scouting, so they will come back eventually, hopefully." But the other reason why we would have done that actually is that they could have said that sort of 7 people went out scouting, but only 3 returned. That would have been because that would have then reapplied the danger of of the situation that they're in. Again, they could have made the planet a little bit more dangerous because even though they were in the this jungle, they were saying that oh, it's a bit. And again, they had a good crack at making it a diverse place, and they had a good crack at making it again more biologically diverse surroundings. But I felt that like there were times whereby there was an opportunity for things to attack the Daleks as well, not just the people, but there could have been Daleks that might have been written off because they were attacked by some of the local wildlife. This episode, along with Deadly Assassin, convinced me that Bernard Horsfall would have made a great Doctor. Yeah, again, he was a bit like in this. He was a bit like John Pertwee's stunt double, but he's got a strong personality. I feel, well, he does sort of he plays a very similar character in all of them, and when he shows up as the Time Lord in War Games, he's pretty much he's got a strong conviction presence then on screen. But yeah, to bring him in as the Thal as well. What did you think of the Thals in this? The actual characterization of the Thals, the fact that they'd gone from being more pacifistic into actually proactive Suicide Squad, basically.
Well, I suppose a downtrodden race does tend to do that. I'm just glad they got rid of the heavy eyeliner from the from the Cushing film. But
Not turning up like
because
Daniel LaRue's stunt doubles.
I mean, they the thing I liked about it is they still, when they were casting it.
Yep.
I mean, all right. I know they can use hair pieces and like different powders and makeup to do the skin tone and that. They still had a very Thalish look for it, in relation to the Hartnell episode, not the Cushing film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see why they would be like that. I mean, they're going to be anti-Dalek, and given the chance of wiping out a potential Dalek army, I would imagine they would be, to quote a famous Vulcan, a race that would understand the needs of the many, etc.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this is the fact that they didn't know how many Daleks there were, that they assumed that it was just like a dozen. So obviously that's why there was a very small force. So that makes sense, I think. In terms of how this story plays out as well, is that the escalation happens pretty quickly. we do get a little bit of a lull in the middle, which is very, it's very talk heavy, but I don't think it's wasted dialogue though.
No, it flew by like the rest of it.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing I'd say about the foals and their behaviour, um, if you're looking at the potential of Daleks to actually be able to completely cloak themselves, with invisibility, that's certainly that's certainly a reason to get amongst it and stop them.
Do you know there is a you can, I don't know if anybody can take away what they like from this, right? But there is a movie out there that I find is actually very very close to this story, and it's quite a big movie and it's quite a popular movie as well. But I think it's very close to the story, and I mean very close. And it was directed by James Cameron.
Directed by James Cameron?
Yeah.
What, are you going with Terminator 2 or something?
No. Close, mind, but not Terminator 2, no. Aliens. It's almost the same story.
It is quite similar.
They arrive in a colony.
You're talking about Aliens, the greatest film ever made, aren't you? Aliens.
But it's the same story. They arrive in a colony. There's a colony already there. The people that arrive, the soldiers that arrive, are there to deal with the situation. They realise that things have escalated out of control, and it ends with a massive explosion, and the Queen being destroyed. Not destroyed at the end, but the whole race getting put on ice, literally. It's the same story. we even got the cowardly guy going, "Game over, man, game over," and the military not going, "No, let's kill everyone."
Yeah, I suppose you haven't at the very end there, where the three Daleks they've never been beaten. You've literally got the opening to Alien 3, so I can see where you're going with it.
It is the same story. I'm not just drawing parallels here. If you examine it, it's the same story. It's because you can get the spaceship crash in Aliens, like you get with the dropship crashes. In this one, you get the other spaceship crash. So that even happens in this. If you were to look at this side by side, it's literally like, I wonder what James Cameron was watching when he was writing Aliens.
Well, there you go. That's probably why I enjoyed it so much, because I love that film.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe James Cameron does watch a bit of Doctor Who. It's because he has spent time in Britain, so he has actually spent time sitting on the sofa watching BBC TV.
Well, yeah, he might have done. I bet he doesn't watch it anymore because nobody else does.
Sly jab there.
Well, you have to, don't you?
But yeah, I mean, if I was going to compare Planet of the Daleks to anything, it would be Aliens. The thing that
okay, I said Terminator 2 because of the ice bit at the end, but yeah.
No. I mean, it's still same sort of thing. But you imagine instead of having the nuclear plant for the terraforming station, you've got the volcano for the ice station. So it's similar sort of different sort of explosion though. Well,
you're spot on. It's a good comparison.
So yeah, there's like I said, there is a little bit of a lull in the middle, but I think that we get some good character development out of that, and some really nice dialogue as well as to why. It's not just a case of sympathizing with the people. It's a case of justification as well. You know, when they're having that moment of, you know, I'm not sure if my leadership is right. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing by holding off. And you get the Doctor sort of being reassuring in that moment of, you know, going in without knowing what you're facing isn't the most wise thing to do, and I think you're making the right decision. And that is another trait of the Doctor's, which, again, I tend to find is absent in modern Who. But that's also something that I found absent in, and when I say modern Who, I mean even Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith. It wasn't present there either. It was more because the focal point is on the Doctor in the modern series, and isn't actually on the background characters. They don't really have that. They have the Doctor being the person that's proactive to inspire people to do stuff, but they don't really have the Doctor being like, you are the person for this, and here's why. Which I think is a good. I think it's one of the best scenes in this episode actually. I know that it does have to slow the pace down to get there, but I think that you end up with a more satisfying, rounded characters at the end. And again, we talking about character growth, whereby if you look in the first episode where Weber is very much this aggressive guy that keeps having to be shut down all the time. He's this overly aggressive, angry Thal that just wants to fight. Um, he ends up doing the right thing, and actually sacrificing his life to do it. I don't know where you'd go with that, really, to be honest with you, if Weber had survived, but I mean, perhaps the potential for that character was always going to be that, you've got to kill somebody at some point.
Yeah, it's kind of a redemption by fire, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of, because I mean, this guy was always butting heads. He wasn't necessarily in the wrong. He was just butting heads with all the people around him. So it was a case of, I don't think the Doctor disagreed with him. It was just the fact that he was overly aggressive to actually what they needed from him, really. They needed him to be more patient, and it needed to be, just a bit more understanding, and just a little bit calmer, I think. Let me see.
Yeah, I quite liked Rebec's character as well, played by Jane
Yes.
Howe, because we know how television used to be, and quite often halfway through a story on a lot of programs, they'd bring in Totty, to try and liven things up. But I actually brought her in as a really intelligent, proactive character, and I found Doctor Who used to do that a lot, regardless of the era in the originals. It didn't just apart from apart from the regeneration of Peter Davison and Perry's cleavage, they didn't tend to do that sort of thing in Doctor Who. They always portrayed the ladies that appeared as intelligent as well.
Absolutely.
And I really enjoyed that sort of thing, because it just makes a difference. You don't have a character come on and you go, well, yeah, I know what that's for. Whereas you're like, who's this? Oh, right, this character's got that agenda, that point of view, and it's.
And but the other thing as well, like you've not just got equal footing for the women. I mean, at this time, I think 1973. If I've got my history right, and this is something that we might have to look up, but I believe 1973 was when the gender pay gap was made illegal, so that women were paid the same as men for the jobs, which is why when you get these like arguments about the gender pay gap now these days, it's total horse crap. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It was outlawed in I believe it was 1973. It was actually made illegal. So at this moment in time, women are when this show is being made are on exactly the same pay as men. So everything's been kind of brought up to everybody's equal. So I think that's probably been a big part of it. I would have to look that up to make a more assertive claim on that. But I believe
it's all right. Luke Oza's just ruined the point. So
I've got a problem with the possibility of Rebek brought in for Totty. Yeah, I mean Jane Howe was not a bad looking chick. She was a bit more equal footing than a lot of people portrayed in science fiction. I don't know though. I mean, people. I do have a bit of a problem actually with today's writing for women actually more than I did for the older writing, because I remember episodes of the original series of Trek, and I never took Uhura as anything but a badass. I mean, right the way throughout. You know, even in like episodes like Mirror Mirror, where she pulls out the dagger and threatens to cut Sulu's throat. I mean, that's you know, that's not the
Yeah, you don't argue with
yeah.
that.
I mean, even right the way throughout Star Trek, you know, every single time Uhura was faced with a situation, it was a case of she was always up for putting people in their place. Look at Star Trek 3, where she tells the guy to get in the cupboard. I mean, you know, she, I've never had a problem with the way that most science fiction writing. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be, but I tend to have more of a problem today because today they seem to be. I mean, I don't want to go back to talking about this, but because I've already covered this. But when they done He-Man, Masters of the Universe Revelation, the thing they did with that show, and the big problem I've got with that was Kevin Smith was like, you know, trying to defend the show based on the fact that, you know, He-Man gets sacrificed in the first episode, and his argument was, well, you know, he didn't sideline He-Man in favor of the women. It's, you know, he gave his life. And he's like, you know, did Tony Stark get sidelined when he gave his life? And my argument to that was no. But Tony Stark gave his life at the end of the story, not the bloody start. They didn't start out that way. That wasn't the start of the film. That was the end of the film. And there's the big difference, you know. And I've got no problems with having strong character females in the show. But when you
No, just stop making them look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, because that's the real problem. They don't look like girls anymore.
It's not only
and that really annoys me.
It's not only that. It's yeah, you're right in that degree. It's the fact that, you know, if you're going to say that these are strong women, why are you trying to make them more like men? I mean, why would you write them that way to begin with? But it's not only that. It's the fact that these characters, if you're gonna, you know, I can honestly say, right, if you were to take Kevin Smith and have him face a 2003 Kevin Smith, he would have literally gone, you know, I've written a new Masters of the Universe show where Teal is the central character, and 2003 Kevin Smith would have gone like, dude, you just created a He-Man show without fucking He-Man. Do you not see the problem? And you know, that's exactly what would have happened. And how they write women today is very much that they write them as men. And I don't know why it is, but we had Katie Manning in this, a very attractive, very svelte, a very feminine person in this episode, in this story, in Doctor Who in general, but still ballsy up front, go-getter, a very proactive character. A character that has many other assets other than just being female, and it's not a problem. As you point out, Jane Howe in this, playing what's her name?
Rebecca.
Pardon?
Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca. She is a very attractive woman, but she's also a proactive individual as well. But at no point does her sexuality become an issue in this. The only time it does play up is because Bernard Horsfall's Taran was in a relationship with her, and it fogged up his mind a little bit, you know. But that would happen if you had any sort of relationship with anyone. You wouldn't want to put a loved one in danger, regardless of whether or not they were a spouse or a sibling. I mean, you wouldn't. That doesn't change. So I think that the writing for how they handle it these days is quite honestly atrocious. And I don't think that people have got a really good grasp on it. Now, maybe that's because at the time when a lot of science fiction was being written, that you had a lot of female sci-fi writers that people didn't know about. People like DC Fontana, who was writing sci-fi behind the scenes. You know, that's entirely. I mean, she calls herself DC, or called herself DC Fontana, because she didn't want people knowing that she was Dorothy Fontana. But I mean, she was one of the most prolific sci-fi writers, you know, and wrote some of the best stuff out there. Um, so I feel like it's not just that they've put more characterization into the older shows. It's that I think that they were better written to begin with. Um,
Yeah, I mean, for me, the real problem at the moment is I've got no problem with feminists.
no,
Everyone's got every right to be
yeah,
equal. The trouble I've got, like so many movements currently, the nutters have got hold of it and have blown it all out of proportion. So now actual feminist women that want to be equal are voicing against this sort of stuff. They're saying, "Why are you making female characters look like men?" That's women that count themselves as feminists saying
yeah.
that. It's just going round and
I
round and
tell
round
you
in
what I think
circles.
they hit on the problem. It's that most of the time they don't elevate the female characters. What they do is they reduce the male characters. This doesn't make the other character better. All you've done is take the other characters and made them worse. That's not how you do this. That's not how. Again, look, if we're talking about strong female characters, we've obviously got we've obviously mentioned aliens earlier, so we got the character of Ripley, which immediately springs to mind. Sigourney Weaver's Ripley she was a mother in the movies. She was not in a prime position. She was not a badass in and of herself. She was just a person trying to do their job just so they could get the money and go home. That's all. It's just all this crap just kept happening to her. And she adapted to the situation. That's what made Ripley Ripley, was the fact that her own character was capable of overcoming where the others weren't. And we had stronger characters in with Ripley, um, but she wasn't diminished by that. She had all the scenes, particularly with Michael Biehn in Aliens, and those two. That's the scene whereby he's showing her how to load up the guns and everything like that. It's a cracking scene, and even to the point whereby the character of Newt is pretty much elevated when in that moment whereby Bill Paxton's having the freak out moment. It's like, oh, we got to survive for how long until relief arrives? And then she says, like, but this girl has been surviving a lot longer than that without any sort of training or any sort of backup. It pays off when you don't diminish the other characters by it elevates. You elevate everyone, as they say.
Yeah.
A high tide floats all boats. It's it doesn't diminish it, but these days what they do is they tend to write these characters. They either write them out, which is what happened again in Masters of the Universe. There was no male characters in Masters of the Universe that really had any strong. I mean, if you look back at the original He-Man, it was all men. It was all all the Masters were pretty much men. I mean, you had Teela, you had the Sorceress, you had a few, like Evelyn and all that, but most of them were people like Fisto and Ram Man and all these different characters, and all of them just got marginalized, just got chucked aside, just for Teela and her friend who it was just, and that's the way it goes these days. To be honest with you, that's the way it tends to be, is that they take what is normal now, throw that aside, and they say that's not acceptable because we need to highlight these instead, because we feel like this is more important. Well, it is if you make the story about that, but if it's not, then what you've done there is tokenism. And I do feel like every single time I see it, the scene that goes through my head is the black guy at the party in Not Another Teen Movie, when he walks in and there's another black guy there, and he's just like, "What are you doing?" So what do you mean? I'm supposed to be the only black guy at this party. I'm like, oh damn, shit. Yeah, I know, it's whack. And he hands him the cup and he walks out. I mean, it's just that's a perfect. Except they're not doing it with black people anymore. They're doing it with the LGBT community now and women. So it's exactly the same thing. Whereas before, it treated everybody as equal. It didn't matter, and it didn't matter the sexuality because they didn't. It was never brought up. You don't know if Weber was gay or not. You have no idea, not a clue. It's not important. Never mentioned.
No, it didn't matter.
And the same there with Codal as well. You know, we only knew that Taran and Rebek were in a relationship because it was brought up a little bit, but we don't know what the condition of that relationship was. We have no idea. We've assumed we've grafted our own onto that, but that's good character writing. That's good character writing because nobody can identify with that. No, it doesn't matter. We don't know. For all we know, they're in a threesome or they're in a sixsome. We have no clue. But the fact that they're caring for each other, that allows us to attach ourselves to those characters instantly. We don't have to. There's no need to go any further with that. You know, Codal. I think we had a little bit of a moment where I think it was Codal, was it, with Joe, whereby
Oh, that was Latek.
yeah,
I remember him.
yeah.
I saw that it's Petal spelt backwards because he was originally supposed to be called Petal.
Yeah, but again, there's no real issue there either, because again that gets shut down pretty fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of sort of the state of sci-fi writing, really. With it's not everywhere. I mean there are some issues, I guess. Obviously, I don't want to get too far off topic now, but I don't know if you've heard about where Doctor Who might be going. But I believe after 2022, they're looking at getting. I think was it. I just want to have a quick look here.
While you're looking, I will say over the last 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
the best program I've seen that's sci-fi, that's well written, where everyone's written equally and people are all elevated together, is probably the Orville. And I never thought I would have said that 6 years ago before that program started. I know it's a pastiche on the Next Generation, and it's Seth MacFarlane doing his Seth MacFarlane thing, but he's written it in a way where everybody is equal.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, there are those types of shows. Again, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, they tended to be pretty level-handed with people anyway. With how they managed it, they never really. I mean, you look at the Next Generation. The first, even season 1, the Next Generation, the head of security was Tasha Yar. Like she was the kick-ass member of the team. You know, you don't have to. You don't have to be heavy. She was still feminine though. I mean, you've only got to look at the episode whereby she gets it on with Data. I mean, she's still the head of security. She can still beat you into a pulp. But she was still a sexy feminine girl, and the issue I have is the fact that they seem to think that there's something wrong with that, and that gets pushed down. There's something wrong with if you were normal. There's something wrong with you. Now, when I say normal, I'm going by national, international averages. I'm not going by, I'm not trying to say somebody who's LGBT alphabet isn't normal. What I'm saying to you is that it's by the actual average. That if you take the overall stats of this entire planet and go, what are people normally? Normally, most people would be considered to be heterosexual. That's just the way it is. If you don't like it, I can't help that. That's just the facts. There's no there's no getting around that. I'm not saying that people who are of the gay or lesbian community aren't normal. I'm just saying that the law of averages says that the facts are most people are heterosexual. That's just the way it is. So the fact that they are gearing away from that and they feel like that the best way to write drama is to instigate these plots for these people, and that they have to treat these people in a particular way. First of all, I think that's disrespectful to those people to begin with. That these people have to be treated differently to be treated the same. And what are you on about? You can't do that. You can't treat.
No, you can't.
You can't say, oh, these people are exactly the same as you, so we're going to treat them exceptionally. What? How did that happen? Yeah, it's and to me that sort of tokenism is just not wanted in any form of writing. Actually, I like the fact that there are shows. I just watched. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I watched the film I Love You, Philip Morris with Jim Carrey and Ewan McGregor. It's a film about two gay men. It's a true story. It's based on a true story. There's nothing wrong with the film. I think it's a brilliant film. I think it's really well done. There's no issue with it at all. But it's what the film was about. It's that's what it was.
Yeah, but didn't people kick off that it didn't star two gay men in the lead roles?
Yeah,
because that's what people kick off
Yeah.
about now. You can't, as like when the guy from The Simpsons stepped down from playing a lot of crap because he wasn't of.
Yeah.
It's like you never see him.
yeah.
He's just doing a voice. It's a cartoon.
And he's been doing it for 30 years, and nobody'd ever said anything in 30 years.
Yeah,
but all of a sudden it was wrong.
They're missing the point of what acting is. It's acting. You are playing a part.
Yeah,
you
didn't black up for it.
No, and the thing that I mean, all right, that's a completely different thing, but it's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
It's like me complaining. Well, we've just watched this program. Well, John Pertwee's not really from Gallifrey. How dare they?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's yeah. It's,
Go on, you was looking for something for Doctor Who anyway.
Yeah. I'm just sorry. I was going to bring this up actually. I don't know if you've actually heard, but it's possible that the head writer for Gentleman Jack, Sally Wainwright, is going to be taken over as the head showrunner for Doctor Who. That's looking like what it's going to be.
Is that good or bad? Because I haven't seen Gentleman Jack.
No. Well, Gentleman Jack is a multi-award winner. It is an award-winning show. She's also written Happy Valley, Last Tango in Halifax, Scott and Bailey. She's done quite a bit with Saran Jones actually. So it's like Last Tango in Halifax, Scott and Bailey, Unforgiven, Bonkers, The Amazing Mrs. Pritchard, Jane Hall. She's an experienced writer. I mean, she's the creator and writer on a lot of these. Playing the Field, Bad Girls, Coronation Street, Revelations, The House of Windsor, Emmerdale. I mean, she's a writer. A writer. She's spitting these out. She's done 6 episodes of this, 5 episodes of that, 58 episodes of that. She wrote 58 episodes of Coronation Street. She knows how to write. I mean, it's...
Yeah, but does she know how to write sci-fi? That's the thing. Coronation Street is not very sci-fi.
No,
the
but
closest they've got was when Craig Charles was in it.
No, but the good thing is that she's actually thrown a broad net. She's not just writing one particular thing, which means that not only is she a prolific writer, to be able to write 58 episodes of anything, you have to be a prolific writer. But the fact that she's covered such a wide base, where she's done like Play in the Field, Spark House, At Home with the Braithwaites, Canterbury Tales, Shakespeare Told, Jane Hall, I mean The Last Witch, To Walk the Invisible, Bronte Sisters. She's currently doing The Ballad of Reginald Nell. So she's done a lot of period piece stuff.
But the question is, as we know from Stephen Moffat and probably Chris Chibnall as well,
Yes.
are the BBC going to let her write what she wants to write?
I doubt it.
That's the big thing.
Again,
I doubt it as well.
that's the issue that I've got when people say about who's going to be the new showrunner. I'm going to say it doesn't matter who the new showrunner is, because you've got the same people in charge of the BBC, and they're going to have it their way regardless of who's running the show. So what do you do with that? But I mean, I will say this: like her writing, like it would make sense that Sally Wainwright would take over as the showrunner for Doctor Who, because not only is she familiar with the BBC, and not only is she a multi-award winner, but also she's familiar with HBO Max as well, which is where Gentleman Jack is broadcast in America. And HBO Max is also the place where they broadcast Doctor Who as well. They're the ones with the Doctor Who contract. So it would make sense from... It would probably be a HBO part of the contract, really, that would be saying, like, no, can we have Sally take over as... It would probably be coming from them if it was going to be coming from anywhere. And the BBC probably are going to be looking at that as a contract and going, okay, we'll do that.
Well, let's hope HBO insist on someone like Michael Sheen playing the Doctor.
Oh, they won't go that.
No, I know they won't.
I've got a feeling like the next Doctor's gonna be somebody. I mean, people have thrown up Michael Cole's name again, into the mix, and she's. From what I've seen of her, she's a good. She's solid. But again, you know, people really want. I think people do really want people like what's his name, Chris Marshall. There's many other people that they could bring in. I don't think
Nicholas Lyndhurst.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it really matters who you bring in as the Doctor. It really matters how you handle it, and it really matters about the stories that you tell with it. So that to me is the big issue. If they do bring in Sally Wainwright, the other part of that is that I was watching a video the other day that was talking about Sally Wainwright coming in, and it was like, well, if she does come in, are they going to move Doctor Who from Cardiff? That's another issue to have. Would they move it from Cardiff? Well, they've moved it 3 times already. They've moved it from Newport to Upper Bourt, now down to Rothlock. So would they potentially move it again? Given the vast warehouse that they have of things in Cardiff, I don't know, because they've got at this moment in time in Cardiff, people don't realise how much is in Cardiff. There's an entire lot, the size of a factory, just filled with Doctor Who stuff, and it's not just the stuff that they've had from all the past shows, but it's all the stuff that they had from all the Doctor Who exhibits as well, that they loaned out and then they've had back. So you've got all the TARDIS sets, you've got all the everything, you know, all the police boxes, anything that's not out on a museum run is back in Rothlock and Cardiff. So to move all that to a brand new studio, I don't know. Is it easier to move all the stuff, or is it just easier to transfer her? Because she doesn't even, at this moment in time, the way the world works right now, you don't actually have to be there to have a meeting. You can just do what we're doing right now and Skype it, and it's just as effective as being in the room. And if you're the showrunner, do you actually need to be on site? Maybe once or twice. You know, it depends. But if what's happening with the BBC right now is happening, then I can honestly see it happening. I can honestly see it going down. So yeah, Lucosa said the BBC are desperately looking for a black, gay, transgender, Muslim actor to play the next Doctor. Yeah, I can believe that. I mean, right now the way the ratings are looking, I don't know. I genuinely, I'm wondering whether or not they might ease off on their actual. It's hard to say. It's really genuinely it's hard to say because if I'm being honest, Doctor Who's real income right now and where it's suffering is merchandise. That's where it's, because it's not shifting toys. The stuff that it used to throw out the door, it can't get rid of. You cannot get rid of if you were to buy the recent TARDIS crew toy set, man, you could pick that up for peanuts because nobody's buying them. You want to go back and get a Martha Jones or something like that? It's not so easy, and it's a bit more expensive. I think if you were to buy, if I am to check this, I believe if you were to buy like the Fifth Doctor, um, I'll just have a quick check because I like to be fairly accurate with the information. Yes, the Fifth Doctor play set. So the set for the Visitation comes with the 5.5-inch figure of Peter Davison plus the TARDIS, and that's currently up. There's two up for sale right now with a brand new box. One of them is $39.99, and the Caves of Androzani one is $59.99. Now, that's all very well and good. So yeah, Fifth Doctor Classic TARDIS 1980s Caves of Androzani version £99. Dalek $24.99. William Hartnell Second Doctor plus TARDIS War Games, that is $24.99. So let's just have a look here. 13th Doctor toy. £33 for 8. 8 of the same character, by the way. Not no. I'm not even making this up. I can't believe that's even a thing. Look, I've got to share this. You can buy all 8 for £33. Nobody wants to buy one.
That's less than £4 each.
Yeah.
Well, it's just over £4 each.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I feel bad for Jodie. Oh. She's getting paid. That I think that tells you everything. I think so look, the TARDIS, the Fifth Doctor's TARDIS console. You can buy that for £29. First Doctor's collection TARDIS £29. 29. What's that one? That's Peter Capaldi's. They actually don't sell Jodie's. Huh, fair enough.
You just make one out of a dead crab, don't you?
But I mean, yeah, that's the situation. That's what they're looking at. I'd be willing to bet they are looking at that, because if all the classic stuff is 30, 40, 50 quid, and then you've got, we've got to sell 8 Jodie Whittaker toys for £33 for all of them. I think that's a big step, and that's probably, what do they call them? People who buy the things and then shill them cheap, trying to make a profit. Scalpers, yeah. I mean, somebody scalped those toys thinking that they were going to be in for a profit, and it's hideously backfired. That tells you everything when they can't shift those as toys. It's been like that for the last 3 years. The BBC prioritizes ticking diversity boxes. Everything else is segregated. Yeah, it's true. It is true. Look at the way that the daytime media shows are going. Everybody's got to be black, Indian, Asian, female, whatever. I mean, it's the overrepresentation of minorities now is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, the problem I have with it isn't the fact that they've been overly represented. I mean, I do have a problem with that. But the point is that, first of all, it has nothing to do with their talent or their skill. What difference does it make if somebody's black, white, or indifferent, if their job is sitting down reading an auto cue on daytime TV? What difference does it make if they straight or gay? If you're telling me that the person's supposed to be delivering an impartial story, then I don't give a shit what you go to bed with. I couldn't care less. I mean, that's just my opinion. But as far as I'm concerned, if I'm Simon McCoy has left the BBC now to go work for, I don't know, is it GB News? I don't know. But he's left the BBC now, and they've now brought in this new person, and they're replacing other people at the BBC with all these other. I mean, it's getting to a point whereby if you're a straight white person, you can't get a job at the BBC. That's where you're at, pretty much. Which is odd because I find that the BBC 30 years ago was actually a bit more diverse than it is now. And they weren't trying. I mean, I just remember shows like the Kumars and everything like that, and I never even saw it as an issue. But there we are. Getting back to the Planet of the Daleks, however, because that's what we should be talking about. But we've come full circle, I think. Good story. Good performance as well by John Pertwee in this. I thought he was very solid in this. Sometimes he can be a bit flamboyant, but in this I really felt like John Pertwee was. I mentioned it earlier that I feel he's much more the straight man. If he's the straight man, and if you're looking at it as a partnership between him and Joe, then he's Sid Little and she's Eddie Large, ironically. But that's the way it works, and I felt that he was very strong as the straight edge guy in this. Obviously, hand him a prop and he's always going to perform. But I feel like it was a good performance all around. Actually, I don't think there's any weaknesses.
Yeah, I don't think it was a bad performance at all. I already know what I'm going to rate this one.
There are some issues I've got with the storytelling. Again, the whole bit of the TARDIS running out of oxygen is one that I just shake my head at and go, no. All he's got to do is open one of the internal doors in the TARDIS. He's got plenty of oxygen, I assure you. So that was a bit contrived. The fact that you've got these Daleks already there. Is there a need for a Dalek to be invisible? I mean, out of the plots like that are around, why would a Dalek need to be invisible?
Well, I mean, a Dalek wouldn't, but that was the plot device as to why they were on that planet.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking that the actual because the point of being on the planet was they were amassing an army. That was the point.
Yeah, but they was also experimenting.
Yeah, but I think that was just a budget thing to save because they couldn't afford the makeup for a Spyrodon. I think that's all that was. If I'm being honest, like I think they didn't have the budget to show us the Spyrodon creature because they'd blown it all on good sets and everything over the past two stories.
Big purple fur coat.
Yeah, so I think that's what that was really. But I think again, I'm trying to think of it's not perfect, so there are things that they could have tightened up on here or there, little things. But I think that they give it a good shot. I think that they give it a really good shot. I think the music was good in this, and the music was. Here's the other thing as well. We mentioned about the sound levels in this story, about how the background sound was good. The background music in this was really good because it didn't overpower anything. It was there from start to finish, but it didn't. It wasn't something that became really noticeable to the front. There wasn't a particular effect in there that was designed to sort of shock you or anything, or give you a bit of a hit. The music was very much on point with what was happening in the scenes, so I liked it a lot actually. Again, the sound design was good, the set design was good. The camera work could have been a bit better in places. I mean, in particular, whereby we had the Daleks together and they kept pushing in all the time, and it just got a bit muddled as to what the hell we were looking at. Particularly where we had the Daleks side by side, and the camera was kind of shooting past them, and it was like, how many Daleks are in that scene? I can't really see. So yeah, that could have been. And the other thing that I don't really blame them for it. But there are times whereby they would crash zooming in on the camera, and they were doing it because they'd probably put down something on the floor and they couldn't actually glide the cameras over. So I don't really blame them for that. So instead of actually moving the camera in, they actually just done a mechanical zoom. So yeah, that's probably the sort of the negatives of this, and some of the lighting as well, because they didn't need all the green lighting. They could have changed that out for more naturalistic lighting. I know they wanted to be alien planet, but given how that they were gonna go from the studio to outside lighting anyway, I think that would have worked a little bit better, or at least taken some green lights with them outside. Um, those are really sort of my big problems with it. Have you got any big problems with this, Chris?
No, not really. Um, I I think that's one of the best episodes of Classic Who I've ever watched. I wouldn't say I've got any problems. You know, right? There was a couple of times where you could see the Daleks or models, and
Yeah.
you did have the big purple fur coats, which was a means to an end. But no, I wouldn't say I had any real problems.
They were in disguise.
The sound.
They were at
they're walking on the floor.
I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, sometimes you see the joins in the set. I mean, that's a problem. I will say that as well. They could have taken a bit more time, particularly when you saw the caster wheels holding the Dalek set, the TARDIS sets up. I mean, this is play-by-play stuff. Probably they didn't have time to put down the covering for it because. No, I don't want to hand them that excuse actually. I know that they would have been probably up against it, and they probably shot everything inside the TARDIS in one day, and then they done everything outside. So they probably just took that set down and put it into storage to make room for the rest of the jungle set. But I don't want to hand them the excuse of you didn't have time to put a bit of covering over the caster wheels.
Yeah, well, that's where any points I take off, that's where they're going to lose it. Was the TARDIS set where you could see the wheels
and the hinges,
and there was that shot where Pertwee was on the floor where his head was right next to that hinge, and it's like, why is that not covered?
Yeah. And
so yeah, that's pretty much where my points.
But and again, he didn't have to fall down that way either. He could have fallen down. I mean, he was probably doing his own thing. But the director could have stepped in and gone, actually, John, can you just move like a foot to the right? We're looking at some hinges here. Just listen.
Yeah, or put your head next to the console.
Yeah. So that's something that I would have taken points off for.
Yeah. The only other thing I didn't like was the. It was nice that they had like a space agey pull-out bed.
The IKEA cabinet.
But it didn't even look like IKEA. It looked like 1970s FM MFI stuff. You know, it was like plastic coated chipboard. That was probably one of the worst.
It's
bits.
Weird to judge it though, because where is this in terms of design though? Because I'm looking at it. I remember my mother having a 1960s 70s pull down cabinet in the kitchen. And I've actually seen those things now as they've been redone now as retro style furniture, and I'm just wondering how that looked to people back then. I'm trying to see how things were back then, looking forward. Do you know what I mean? You know, was that because were things a bit more? Because it was all Malmine, wasn't it? It was like a Malmine, like the sort of. Cupboard that we have today.
Well, the thing is, I can see a small lad sitting there, and that comes on, and he's running to the kitchen and going, "Mum, Doctor's got the same bedroom as you in his TARDIS." You know
yeah,
what
but
I
I mean, this sort of idea of the flat pack furniture thing. How I don't know where the history of this is in terms of the design to actually look at it and go, was this a new thing? Was this? I'm not that up to speed on actual furniture design myself, to be honest with you. Yeah, you're right. Given that they had the curvy chairs that they had in Frontier in Space, as to use as like a chaise lounge or something like that, I definitely would have gone with something like that instead. I love that. I want one of those myself.
They could have at least they could have at least put some space age, science fiction futuristic handles on it. But it just had like the standard handles you get now still.
Yeah. Because I put down that rating, it's better than 8. It's not quite an 8.5, so 8.25. Thankfully, the whole Invisible Dalek thing only really served to be the cliffhanger for episode 1. It did. It. All right. I'm gonna knock another point off of that. Actually, that's it. I am, because I tell you why. It didn't. That's the one thing that didn't make sense to the plot to me, was the fact that the Doctor had a history with the Daleks. The Thals had a history with the Daleks. Both the Doctor and the Thals had a history with the Daleks, and then the Thals were like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what we're up against. It's a Dalek." In a show called Planet of the Daleks, it's a Dalek. And the Doctor knows it's a Dalek, and you know it's a Dalek. Everybody knows it's a bloody Dalek. I mean, it's great that you see. I wish they just retitled the episode. Perils of Spyrodon. That would have done me. I would have been happy with that. And then you see a Dalek at the end, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, that's changed things up." But it
wouldn't have done because of the Daleks at the end of Frontier in space.
Yeah, so that would have been It's in the mix. So one thing I wanted to get into as well, just before we call it quits here this evening, because we got a little bit of time, I think, about 10 minutes. This actually leads me to what I was actually talking about earlier with the Thals, and what I wanted to mention was that, from my perspective here, and we're looking at the 26th century, because things had got a little bit muddled with the Doctor Who timeline. 26th century Skaro is currently a hellish place. So the Thals have left. We know this because the Skaro star has already been destroyed. That happens in 1963, in fact. So 26th century Skaro is a nightmare of a planet that's actually totally devastated. The war's already happened between the Thals and the Khaleds, and they've lost, and the right has given rise to the Daleks. What I would find interesting, actually, is what would happen if the surviving Thals themselves became Daleks. Because I would be kind of interested to see where that would go. Because they are technically of the similar species. The Thals and the Khaleds are all from Skaro, so they still have the same sort of similar genetic baseline. So I would be rather interested to see what they could do if they had Daleks.
Well, no, then you've got to swap letters, ain't you? There'd be the Laves. There's a turn of events, but
yeah. No, but I mean, I think that this does leave the open opportunity for more interesting Daleks. So, and again, it wouldn't change Daleks because you've still got the original Daleks. You still have them. It's just like this is an offshoot in much the same way of what they did with the Cybermen, whereby you had Marinus Cybermen, or you had Planet 14 Cybermen, or you had Mondas Cybermen, or Second Earth Cybermen. They haven't really explored this with the Daleks, and I think that it's an opportunity to tell a Dalek story without relying on it being more based on the Nazi system. That here is an opportunity to go in a different direction with them and hold true to the original Dalek philosophy. So I think that this story in particular highlights that, because it shows that the Thals weren't completely wiped out. They weren't completely grilled. That there are surviving Thals, and I don't think have we had another Thal story since.
I don't think so. I mean, the
Genesis was probably the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Genesis probably was the last one. Yeah.
I can't think of another one since. So I mean, I think there's material here to mine. Plenty of material here to mine.
Well, there would be if they had writers that could do
Yeah.
it
Well,
and do it justice.
again, I mean, we haven't ever had a Scarrow in his prime. We don't know what that looks like. So to see that, and to see the descent of it, I mean, I think that there's plenty of good material, but particularly considering the nature of the Thals as well, because the Thals seem to be pretty pacifistic as a race. So I think there's a lot there that they could actually take from that, particularly if they were going to end up as Daleks themselves. That actually there's a fall from grace there as well. There's this whole thing of things ending up badly, even with good intentions, and I think that's a cornerstone of writing. Actually, is to start off with a journey to actually take something, show its normal baseline, to twist it then into something that falls off a cliff, and then to show how you try to redeem, then fail, and then redeem, and then that's writing. And I think that they've done it with pretty much everything else in Doctor Who. It normally comes down to an individual that does it, and then you normally like, okay. But I mean, to do it with an entire race, I think would work particularly well. And again, you wouldn't be touching or scrubbing the history of the Daleks. Then you've still got your original baseline Daleks. You've just got this new breed that you could actually put out there and tell a different variation on the story. Tell a different. You've got wiggle room, then, which is something that you don't normally get. And again, you wouldn't be interfering with canon as far as I'm concerned. But I think this story that we have here this evening with Planet of the Daleks, I think it definitely does open up more interesting possibilities for the Thals. Again, I think it's more of a Thal story than a Dalek story. So let's get around to scoring this. So Chris has given it, Lakoza I should say, has given this an 8.25.
I've got to agree with him. I give it 8.25 as well. That's the figure I had in mind. If you're starting at 10, I'm knocked a point off for being able to see the casters and the hinges and stuff like that. And a few more off for just little niggly things like the Spiridon fur coats and those eyes where when they went out you could still see the bulbs and just little things like that. But
they could have done something different there. They could have done something different there.
They could have done, but because of the sound design, the majority of the set design and the acting from the cast, they all believed it. There was no because a lot of the time in 70s Who, you get a lot of stage actors and they're all very
projecting
with their delivery. But none of these guys and girls in this today, they were just acting. So there was no like big over the top booming voice actor. They just all played their parts really well.
In particular, where Weber and Taran were acting off against each other, even though they were fighting for dominance, there was no big projection scene. There was no one trying to dominate the other, even though the characters were trying to dominate each other. The actors weren't. They were playing off each other, and that was pretty good.
Yeah, so I for that reason, I've kept it up at 8.25, 8.25, because I thought everyone was totally believable in their parts this week. There wasn't anyone that stood out. We've had episodes before, like the Robots of Death and that, where you've got someone that stands out as being really bad in the role. There wasn't a single one in this. They were, even Roy Skelton doing the whispering Wester. That was still a good. That was still a good voice and really well done. So 8.25.
For me, I'm
You're going to be the lowest, aren't
I
you?
am gonna come in low. I am gonna I still loved it. I still think it's a brilliant show. I still think it's a brilliant episode. I love the story. The positives there are I think that the jungle set looks great. I think that they tried with biodiversity. I think Katie Manning had a good strong performance. I think Pertwee had a good strong performance. Bernard Horsfall was a great in this. Prentice Hancock was great in this. Um, it was just it was absolutely solid all round. But man, I got to take, as you mentioned, the eyes. I got to take some points off for production value in being able to see the casters of the set, the hinges, some of the paintwork being scratched off, and things being worn down and tatty and not being taken care of. Um, the lighting, some of the contrived plot devices. For example, the log that goes nowhere, that part of the story, which is only there to serve as a MacGuffin to get them out of trouble, as opposed to actually being a serving for a narrative reason. Um, I think I'm weighing the good here with these things. These are niggles, and I think that they're bumping off quarters of a point at a time. I think it's going to be 7.7 and 3/4, 7.75 points out of 10. I think it's not quite an 8 for
That's
me.
still a good
No,
score.
no, no. It's a very good score. It's not quite an 8 for me. I've got to take points off. If we're gonna talk about rubber frogs in context of this, we've got to talk about those eyes in the forest, which they could have done something else with those. You didn't have to. They could have just done it through sound and noise. Given how good the sound design in this was, you didn't have to actually see the eyes. You could have just had sounds and things rustling, and that would have been enough. And I think that there are things here that they could have managed better without having to spend budget. Again, purple furry suits didn't work for me. Invisible aliens. It was a good story, a very good story, very good performance. Everything else was up to notch. Even the visual effects, and there were visual effects in this that we got, but it's just I've got to knock those points off. So 7.75 is
Are you not going? You're not going to give it half a point back for the amount of mirth was caused by beating off one or two.
he could have beat them off, but he didn't. And of course, you wanted to see how wide and deep that hole was. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think that's the solid enough score. Had they cured those things, there's always room to grow there, and the things I'm pointing out are minor things, but it adds up. And I think the things they've done extremely well. But again, I don't think I'm being unfair really, because I think that where we had the forest lighting, which was this bright green lighting, and then they went into the quarry and it was just normal daylight. I think had they not, that stands out to me. Something like that stands out, whereby had they just naturally lit the jungle scene when it cut to them actually walking outside on location, it would have fitted a hell of a lot better. It's just little things like that. Nothing major though. Nothing. I've got no real sort of big like, oh yeah, this really balls this up. Like I said, things like whereby they had Joe doing the recording the log. Had there been something that she said, that the doctor would have gone, wait a minute, what did she say? And plays it back and goes, aha, okay, here's the solution. This is it. That would have worked a hell of a lot better for me. Even if it was just to get the doctor out of a bit of trouble or something. A realization of the bacteria or something along, not just use it for, I know I've got a gizmo I can take apart. Because from the way that it works in Doctor Who, he could have popped a panel open with a sonic screwdriver and done exactly the same thing. He didn't have to have that device there. So that was it was a wasted opportunity for storytelling, I think. But again, minor issues. Next week we are supposed to be doing the Green Death, I believe.
Yep, that is the next one on the list.
I don't know exactly what's happening next week. We may my son may be joining us next week, so that might be happening. I've got to get in touch with him, but hopefully we everything will be tickety boo. And we'll be watching more Doctor Who. Even if I might have to get another set of headphones actually, if that's the case, because I've only got one set here. But never mind. We'll if my son comes and joins us, because he might be coming down for a visit. We'll have a nice episode of the Green Death to get through, where we'll be taking a trip to Llanfairfach. Lovely.
Easy for you to say.
It's a weird. That's a weird one. I've actually tried to actually get my head around that one, because it as far as I can tell it means small little church. So which,
I don't know. I've noticed if you drive around Wales and look at the road
Yeah.
signs, every single village and town in Wales gives you the Wi-Fi passcode as you enter.
no, here's the interesting thing. Before we go, there actually is a town called Llanfairfach, which is a very similar sort of sounding name, but it actually means the small church of Saint Mary. But so they called it Llanfairfach, which is an interesting. Again, it to me that doesn't really translate. It's like saying something's like tiny church, but it's that doesn't quite get there. It's a bit weird, but yeah. But no, there are actually in that particular area as well. It's in like Conwy, I think. But you do get a lot of clans in like this Llantrysent, Llanelli, Llanfairfach, Llanfairfach. Well, there is now. So yeah, you do get that in the locale.
Go on, show off, do the long one. Well done.
Bastard. Okay. Right then, I think that's going to do it for this week. Join us next week for Doctor Who The Green Death, where the third Doctor is going to be in a small mining town in Wales, and not the one from the Hungry Earth, but a different one, which is weird that they keep coming to mining towns. Yeah, and we shall see you next week for more Doctor Who. But until then, take care, have a good one, and we'll see you again.
See you later.